I'm live. Yay. Hi, everybody. Hopefully there's quite a few of you on right now. I'm going to open my Q&A box here in case you guys have any comments as we move along, any comments or questions. So this is actually my little disclaimer. This is the first time I'm just rattling off for a full hour. I'm used to doing tons of interviews. I've been interviewed. I've given a lot of interviews. I have an online magazine for fire performers, so I'm used to giving the questions and kind of sitting back while everybody talks. So I'm going to have quite a bit of time to cover. I didn't get quite as many questions as I was hoping for, although I did get quite a bit, and they were all awesome. So what I'm going to do to try and give you guys as much value as possible and try to really fill out the time. We might not go for a full hour still, but what I'll do to flesh out the time is I will actually kind of give you some peripheral information, some related information to the question. So I apologize if I'm being a little too long-winded. Feel free to go, hey, shut up in the Q&A box. I think you have a Q&A in both YouTube and Google+. I know you have one in Google+ for sure, so feel free to comment. So yeah, with that, I think we can get started. I'm going to go ahead and switch over to my screen. I'm going to cover some really cool stuff today. How do I do that again? There it is, screen share. I'm going to take you guys to my Photoshop, and now this doesn't mean that you guys have to do everything in Photoshop. There's a couple of things that I'm going to do just for demonstration purposes, because Photoshop is really good for that. It just happens to be. So the first thing we're going to go over, and this is actually one of my favorite things to cover because it's really a great foundation question. A lot of people ask me about pixels and resolution. Now there might be a lot of you, because it is such a fundamental question, that already know about these terms and about these things, but I actually know a lot of designers that don't even know everything there is to know about pixels. I'm a little fuzzy, to be quite perfectly honest, because the terms are used so broadly and they're applied to so many different things. Pixel can mean a different thing on a camera screen. It can mean a different thing on a computer screen. It's even applied sometimes to print, though not accurately. You don't really have pixels in something like a flyer or a t-shirt. So let me just tell you really quick, first off, what it actually means. So a pixel is an element of a screen. So it could be a computer screen or a television screen, and it is a point of light. But the easiest way to really understand that is I'm going to zoom in really close to this image, and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. Now, this is not one of my elements. I just want to mention that first. I actually downloaded this from Canva. So this is what canva.com provides, and this is what it looks like when you download something as an image for web. Now, you can see all these tiny little squares. Those are pixels. They're essentially just tiny squares of color. So the way to really understand that is to look at images on your computer screen as more of a mosaic than the kind of fluid images that we see with our eye in the real world. Now, hopefully that makes sense. So this whole image is really composed of tiny pixels that are just tiny bits of information. Now, the more pixels you have in an image, the more detail that image is going to have, the nicer it's going to look. However, there are some places where you actually want to have less pixels. Now, first I'm going to tell you a little bit about resolution. Resolution is really the way that we measure pixels or the detail or the quality of an image. Now, with something like online, something like social media, you actually want to have a smaller resolution. Now, resolution is measured in pixels per inch, and that is exactly what it sounds like. It's PPI for short. And that's actually the number of pixels that you have in any given inch of an image. Now, I'm going to pull up my image window here. We see that we have a width of 7.655 and a height of 11.478 inches. And this is at 96. So we know that we have 96 pixels for every single one of these inch, and that adds up to this number of pixels in the width and in the height. So I hope that makes sense. And the reason that we want to have online images be a little bit smaller in resolution than something like, say, print is because that's what makes our internet really nice and fluid and speedy. whenever you have images that are just a little too big for their own good, that gives you a little problem with load time. So with something like social media, because something like Facebook is in control of their own platform, they will actually compress and size down your images for you. So they won't allow you to post images at their full resolution. Now, if you've ever had a problem with posting this nice crisp image as like your profile cover or something, and all of a sudden it looks like poop, well, that's because that's Facebook actually compressing that image. Now, compression and optimization are terms that you want to remember if you are having problems with your website being a little slow. Now, you really want to fix stuff like that because it really doesn't take very long for somebody to want to leave a website if it's not loading fast enough. I think the average is like 3 seconds that somebody will actually click off a website if it hasn't loaded yet. So yeah, our attention span is not really high these days, so please keep that in mind and always compress and optimize your images. So I'm going to show you how to do that in Photoshop. Or actually, you know what, since I know a lot of you guys are probably not wanting to use Photoshop, and I'm going to actually disagree with that and tell you that I think you should really invest in something, especially because a lot of the questions I've been getting pertain to things like t-shirts and books and things like that. So if you're going to make a graphic, you know, something graphic that you're going to sell, you really kind of want to invest in the right tools. Canva is great for a lot of things. PicMonkey is great, iPicky is great, but they are free software, so they are going to have their limitations. I know somebody was emailing me yesterday, Mike. He said that Canva limits you to 30 pages and he was trying to do a 100-page book. Well, that's really somewhere that you want to invest in the proper tools that really let you push your limits and really let you push your boundaries. Photoshop, by the way, is $10 a month, and I'm not an Adobe affiliate. They do not send me checks in no way, shape, or form. I just really think it's worth that small investment. I know that marketers like to talk about things in latte prices. Well, that's about 2 lattes a month. So I think we can all afford that, but if you don't want to work with Photoshop, that's fine. By the way, if you're intimidated by Photoshop, just watch my training. It's really not that scary. You have the training, watch it. Okay, so first, I'm going to show you how to compress an image in Canva. Alrighty, so this is one of the images I've made. If you've gone through your completed files folder, oh wait, I have to switch my window, I believe, in Google Hangouts so you guys can actually see that. Okay, here we go. All right, now you guys should be able to see my Canva. And by the way, feel free to just post in the Q&A box so I know you guys are out there. Tell me, introduce yourselves, tell me your names, tell me where you're coming from, how's the weather, stuff like that. I just want to know that I'm not just talking to a screen because that's kind of boring. I like to interact with you. Alrighty, so here's my Canva. Let me actually find that on my computer. Here we go. Alrighty. Okay, here I am. So the way that you optimize it is actually totally easy because Canva's made for making pictures for the web. And what you're going to see on your Canva is a little different from mine, by the way. I have Canva for work, which right now I'm doing a free trial, but I believe it's like $12 a month. So that's not really that much more expensive than Photoshop. So if you guys don't want to get Photoshop, you're a little more comfortable with Canva, that's another option. Get Canva for work. It has a lot more features, lets you do a lot more stuff. I don't know every single feature that it offers over regular Canva, but you could do your free trial and figure it out yourselves. It's super great. You could build branding and stuff like that in Canva. But always keep in mind the license restrictions, and I'm going to go over that a little bit later. So you see here when I went to download, one of my options is an image for web. Now, Canva is already built to help us with the right parameters for our images. We don't really need to know anything else. We don't need to know what resolution this is or how big it is. It's already telling us that it's going to help us save our image for web. So we really don't have to worry about it there. if you're trying to compress images on WordPress, if you're trying to get something on your website and you know that it's huge and you know that it's slowing things down, you can use a plugin called Smushit. That is SMUSHIT. Pardon my French. That was not my intention. So yeah, just get Smushit, and that's going to help you compress your images right in WordPress, and that'll make your website just flow so much smoother and have no hangups, no load time. It's really great. And now I'm going to show you how to do that in Photoshop. And actually, if you're never planning on using Photoshop, stick with me for this one because it's going to show you, Photoshop actually displays what something looks like as it's being optimized. So I'm just going over here to File, and I'm clicking on Save for Web. Alternatively, you can use this quote-unquote shortcut of 4 keys. I think I'm the only one crazy enough in the world that actually memorizes this and uses that. But this is going to show us what our image is going to look like optimized. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit so you could see it a little better. There we go. Okay, now this actually, that looks really good. We really didn't lose a lot of quality there. Pretty often, if you have something organic, it's going to look a lot better optimized than something that has rigid lines and something that's more geometric. But you really don't see a big difference in here. What we see though is Photoshop showing us here the original in the top left, and over here we have 31 quality, so that's 31 out of 100, I believe. If I raise this all the way up, yeah, 31 out of 100. So you see the quality is quite a bit reduced, but so is the file size. So obviously the higher the resolution, the higher the file size. So you can see that this file is much more manageable. It'll be much friendlier to our website or to our social media site. Now there are some social media platforms that would just reject an image outright. They won't let you upload it if it's too large. So you definitely want to keep that in mind, or because we're not losing a lot of quality here, we can even go with the lowest quality one, which is the 7, also the smallest size, and we can just save that and it'll pop up the window. You see I've got my whole list of flowers here, and I'm going to save that. I'm going to mark it for web. Okay, there we go. So again, if you're not using Photoshop, don't worry about it, because we're just showing you how optimized images works and what it means to optimize an image. But because we didn't see a lot of distortion there, I'm going to try it again with an image that's a little more geometric, because you're really going to see the difference here. There we go. You see that? You see all those little distortion that happen next to the color breaks? Yeah, that's really not pretty. That's actually why I like to avoid using optimization for things like that, but that's not a big deal because I created all the elements in the social media graphics Toybox to already work for the web. These are all at 72 dpi, which is already a very nice manageable size, and yet they're fairly big, so you're not losing quality. In fact, typically if you're working with print, and we're talking primarily about web here, but if you're doing something for print, you want your resolution to be about 300 ppi, or rather dpi, because now that we're talking about print, we could talk about dots per inch rather than pixels per inch, because that is a measurement there. But I actually did print something at 72 dpi from my graphics Toybox, and I just want to show you what that looks like, because it's actually pretty workable. It's not that bad. Switch off. Okay, there we go. So maybe you can't see too well because the quality of my webcam isn't that great, but it's actually pretty straightforward. It's not fuzzy. It's quite nice. So it's totally workable for something that's not too huge. Obviously, you don't want to blow this up any bigger than that, because that's where you're going to start to have problems, especially with something that's an image that's built for the web. When you try to blow it up, it does tend to get distorted. I'm going to try and show you something right now. Now, for example, because since this was already made for web, and then we saved it for web again in Canva, it reduced the quality just a bit more, but I'm actually going to reduce the resolution and make the image size even larger. So it's trying to fill all these pixels in a very tiny space. Or actually, you know what? I need to reduce the inch. That's what I need to do. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. Now you could see that it's starting to get fuzzy, especially where there are color breaks. You could see a little bit of distortion. Now this is what we don't want, and this is what happens when we blow images up that are far beyond what they started out as. You never want to do that. You can zoom in, that's not a problem. But if you try to make like a 200 pixel by 200 pixel image, 400 by 400, if you're enlarging it, you know, by 100%, you're gonna start to run into problems. So please try to avoid that. That's when we start to run into things like pixelation. And pixelation is really, like if we weren't zoomed in right now and we were seeing this, that would be a problem, right? We don't want things like this on our website. They really don't look very nice. They don't look clean. They don't look professional. So avoid that. And now hopefully you know how to. Okay, so we briefly talked about pixels. We talked about print. Give me one sec. I'm gonna take a sip of water here. Excuse me. So we've talked about print very briefly, and what I mentioned was that you want your print elements to be at 300 dpi, or 300 dpi. Now, like I said, the elements in the social media graphics toy box are all 72 dpi, but after interacting with you guys, and by the way, this is why I, send so many emails and ask so many questions and kind of bug you on the Facebook group, because I want to get to know you, because I want to get to know how you're using this package. So if anything needs to be adjusted, I can adjust it, and not just necessarily for the next time I'm going to sell something, but to make it worth your while, to make sure that you're getting the most out of it. So what I've been learning is that a lot of you guys are trying to use the graphic toy box in print for things like books and things like t-shirts, like I already mentioned. And since the best thing for that is 300 dpi, and there are actually print shops that will reject your graphic files if you don't make them at those sizes. Let me get back on camera here. They will actually send your file back to you and say, we cannot print this, because they don't want to be held liable for something that is not of good quality to begin with, because they know if they're going to print you 2,000 flyers and you see what those flyers look like and they're not up to your standards, you're going to be very angry and very disappointed, and you're not going to want to pay them. So for this reason, and please don't tell my coach or my affiliates or anyone I know, because I'm going to get in big trouble. But for this reason, I'm actually going to provide everybody that bought the original social media graphics toy box with another set of graphic files that are made specifically for print. So these are going to be at higher resolution at 300 dpi. It's not going to be every single graphic file that you got in the original pack. I actually sadly lost some of the graphic files in production, because some of the graphics were just so complex and so big that they actually crashed while I was saving. But I would say 95% of the graphics are ready to go, and I just have to save them at a different resolution and redistribute to you guys. So hopefully you can make good use of that. Again, this is between us and not just the people on the video, but I'm going to send an email, of course, to everybody that purchased the product. So hopefully you guys can get a lot of use out of that. I know there are a lot of you that are making books, and I have tons of respect for book people. I want you guys to make the most of it and not just use it for promotion and social media and for the web. So that's why I'm doing that. And yeah, again, I hope you guys can take advantage of that. So with that being said, you will be able to use certain elements of your graphics pack to make t-shirts. And that was actually another great question that I got. Let me switch back over to my Chrome. That was another great question that I got, was how do you use this to make t-shirts? Well, first of all, I want to say that this isn't primarily the way that I would use this toy box. Again, as the name suggests, it's made for social media. Primarily, you can use it for a lot of web things, to make PDF booklets. I went over that in the training a little bit. and you can use it to send through emails. You can even make it to use printable little booklets. That's fine. For t-shirts, would not be my primary go-to, but that doesn't mean that we can't use it for such. And also that doesn't mean that I can't give you guys a brief overview on how to make t-shirts in general. So I'm gonna start with first things first. This is probably the easiest ways to do t-shirts. I think it's, yeah, teespring.com. It's a crowdsourcing t-shirt sites. There's really 3 ways of doing this. So one is crowdsourcing, and this is probably the best and the easiest because you actually have people buying t-shirts as the t-shirts are being made. So unless you sell, I think, like 10 t-shirts, you don't have to pay anything. And once the t-shirt's already being sold, that's when you're paying for production. So basically, you're not paying for anything. You're not taking a risk here. You're not buying up 200 t-shirts. You're not having them made and then not knowing how many people will actually buy them, right? People are buying them as they're being created. They're sort of made to order. All right, so you actually don't have to make a profile to get started. You do to download anything and obviously to put an order through, but we can just hit the Get Started button and that'll take us to our t-shirts. Now this has some art features that we can create the art right here in Teespring. But what I like to do, I'll show you a little trick. I'm hitting, hopefully I remember this, I think it's Command-Shift-4 on my Mac. Yeah. And that allows me to take a screenshot. I'm sorry, I don't know how to take a screenshot on a PC, but you can Google that. I'm sure it's very easy. That's how I got this. I don't usually use a screenshot feature. And I just select my t-shirt and I take the screenshot. Now the screenshot is automatically copied onto my desktop. So if I don't want to use any of these features that it provides me with right here, I can actually go to my Photoshop and I can open that the screenshot I just took, pop it open, and I can design right here in Photoshop, and I know exactly what the t-shirt and the printable area look like. I know what size it is. Now just keep in mind that when you create your design, there's about a 2-inch space from the seam to the front of the shirt that will not get printed on. So I know some t-shirts look really cool when they're, printed all the way to the edges. You can't do that with most online t-shirt printing companies. For that, I would actually go to my second go-to. Oh, I forgot to switch my screen so you guys don't actually know what I'm looking at. I apologize. So for something like that, I would actually go to a physical print shop. So you would just Google screen printing shop and try and find one in your area. And you would go, and the advantage to that is that they can give you all sorts of really cool features like printing to the seam, and they could also show you what a t-shirt looks like before they print all 200 of them or something. And that's obviously the catch. You can't just get them made to order. You have to order them ahead of time. And the more you order, of course, the cheaper each t-shirt will be, which is also the same for Teespring. The more you sell, the more profit you make. Okay, so now you guys are actually looking at my Photoshop. Now you know what I'm looking at. And we could do this in Canva as well. We could just open it the same way, and I could switch over that right now. Sorry, it's a little tough for me to cater to both. Come on now, especially when my Hangouts doesn't want to work. Okay, a little tough to cater to everyone's software needs. Okay. So here we go. Okay, I'm going to go back to Canva. I'm going to start with a new design. Use custom dimensions. Yeah, I could do that. I'm just going to make it really big. So remember, this has to be a 300 dpi. Canva for web will save it at 96 dpi. So you want to make this as large as possible. So I'm actually going to make this 4,000 pixels. That'll sort of compensate for the small resolution a little bit, but not all the way. You want to kind of avoid Canva, unless it's Canva for work, which I talked about earlier. That allows you, I can't see right now because I haven't placed anything on the canvas. There we go. That allows you to actually download for print. See here, PDF for print. So this would be acceptable for a printer, for something like a t-shirt printer or a flyer printer, even something like a truck wrap. Okay, what was I looking for? Right, the screenshot, which is on my desktop. Okay, I'm popping that onto the canvas. Now when I took that screenshot, it was a bit of a small resolution, so you can see I have to enlarge that. I can actually, all I really need is a printable area, so I can drag that right off the canvas. Okay, there we go. And here's how I can build my design in Canva, my t-shirt design. So that's another alternative for that. Now let's get to using the graphic pack. I have a bunch of elements that I already uploaded here. One thing you have to consider that's going to make this really tough, and which is another reason that this really isn't made for t-shirt printing, is that t-shirt screen printers, each color has to be sort of has to have its own stencil, so to speak. So with something like this, it really would not work on a t-shirt because every individual color that is in this little flower will have to have its own stencil. So you could see this would be a very labor-intensive process, and it would cost you a lot of money. In fact, I think most screen printers would just turn it down, as would Teespring. I'm going to show you what it would look like if you tried to upload this artwork to Teespring. You would just go to Art, you would upload your work, or whatever graphic you wanted to use. And I'll show you a contrast between something that would work nicely and something that would not quite work as well. So this would not work very well at all. Let me see. Okay. Did you try to upload a full color image? It looks like you try to upload an image with more than 10 colors or shades of gray. Unfortunately, because of the way screen printing works, we aren't able to print images with over 10 colors. So that probably simplified what I said and made it much easier to understand than whatever I was blabbing about. But basically, you get the idea. You don't want to use any more than 10 colors. And the more colors you use, the more expensive the t-shirt will be. Thus, the less profit you'll make per t-shirt. Conversely, just to show you a little contrast here, I can use that, and that is not a problem because it's one solid color. Now the unfortunate thing here is you can only do one. See, I don't have any options for uploading any additional artwork, so I can't like put another one on the other side and flip it or do anything like that. But I can add text, and I do that right here. I would just add the text. There we go. In the text bar. There we go. And I could change the fonts. Pick something nice. I like that one. And it kind of lets you keep color match and keep the same color so that you don't have to pay for 5 different colors. So you could see it shows you the in-use colors. And this is the one that our dragon has right now. So we can actually just select that. So right now it matches. And that's very nice of Teespring because now we only have to pay for one color. I can enlarge that. Okay. And you can see it tells you when you're breaching the printable area. Definitely don't want to do that because that means when your customers get their t-shirts delivered, they're going to see like this A and this R get cut off. Definitely don't want to breach that border. You have nice little center lines that are helping you out by centering things for you. Let me see if I can actually center that. Maybe I can't. So I may not be able to center align this, which kind of stinks. But let me see if I can. I would just have to make these 2 different text boxes. And you can do that in Teespring. Even though you can't do more than one image, you can do more than one text box. So I could do that. Oops. Enlarge it. And now I can center one under the other. I can move this guy around. Okay, that looks pretty good. And I could actually change the color of the t-shirt, pick something that contrasts, and pick a different image just to show you what it would look like if I had more than one color. Now you can see right now my base cost is $9.19. I put my second color on there. Immediately the base cost goes up to $10.14. That's because I'm using an alternate color. And I think the price went up also when I chose a colored t-shirt. Let me check on that. Let's change it back to, yeah. See, when I changed it back to white, my base cost became $9.59. Okay, perfect. Oh, look at that. It did let me select 2 images. So I guess you just have to click off. Silly me. Okay, so you could select more than one image. And that means I'm going to flip that. No, it won't let me flip it, unfortunately. And that's exactly why I like to use things like Canva or Photoshop to design things like t-shirts. Again, with Canva, you just want to watch out for the resolution. So when I'm done with my design, and I'm going to make sure that I'm using Canva for work, because then I could download it for print or make a really huge image where maybe the printer won't complain about the resolution because the image is so big and crisp. And let me see if I have a dragon already here. Or actually, you know what? Maybe I could find something that has 2 colors in it. This kind of has 3 colors, although it does look like it has a bit of gradient. You want to avoid anything that has gradients. You can place that over. I could place some text inside. You know, that can be fun. So this is just me playing around and being hypothetical. I don't know if you would actually want to have something that sort of, you know, has a border like that on a t-shirt. You might want to use one of the placeholders though. Let me see if I have a placeholder that has limited colors. This does have a lot of colors, so I don't know if it would count. Yeah, it would probably count as more than 3. But just for argument's sake, delete that. So let's say you're using something else, not necessarily the social media graphics pack. I'm just showing you how to work with t-shirts right now and get the most bang for your free buck. Yeah, sometimes the free software is a little finicky. It's hard to grab stuff. Definitely has its downsides. Okay, so say this is my t-shirt design. Come on. It does not want to be grabbed right now. It's like, come on now. Oy vey. I'm going to use my keyboard. Oh, that's not working either. Oh, great. So I know some of you have been complaining about some of the things that Canva is kind of a pain in the butt to use. Yet another reason why I think Photoshop is, there we go. Photoshop is totally worth the investment of $10 a month. Okay, perfect. And from here, what I would do if I want to get a design is I would delete the background. So I have my design exclusively. I would download it for print if you have the option. If not, I don't recommend, again, don't recommend you doing something on a free graphic software. Let me take you back to Photoshop. By the way, if anybody knows how to just switch the screens without having to point it at my mug every time, I would love to know. Okay, so here we'll grab another element, ancient realm, another loose element. Oh, let me do something similar to what we just did. Oh, I guess that was an old one. I don't have that one anymore. Okay, well, let's say we're using that. Throw it on the t-shirt, and this would definitely be, yeah, that's fine. Oh, and you also want these to be CMYK. And the way you change that in Photoshop is you just go up here to image, mode, CMYK. Typically RGB is for web, CMYK is for printers. So if you're doing flyers, posters, t-shirts, what have you, books, aim for CMYK. Don't merge. Yes. Okay, and there we go. So now we have that design, and this is really the preferable way for me to do it. Actually, I should have done this to begin with. I'm going to make it 300 DPI. I'm going to get rid of that because now that I changed the DPI after I applied the image, it has already distorted it. You see how fuzzy it got? Because I try to make a larger image out of a smaller one. And all that really does is it actually stretches the image because there's not enough information there to fill up all those pixels. You basically just created extra space. So now your computer is having to fill all the empty spaces between the original pixels. And it sort of just makes this mishmash of the two pixels that it sits between. It kind of gives it a medium color, and that's what makes things look fuzzy. So try and avoid that. I'm going to grab that image again and apply it again. You can make it a little bit bigger, but just keep an eye, zoom in, make sure it doesn't look distorted. I think that looks okay. Again, once I provide you guys with the 300 DPI files, that is what you want to use. Don't use 72 DPI on t-shirts, okay? You don't want to disappoint the people that you're going to be mailing these to. And I could get rid of the t-shirt, and here you certainly want to save it as a PNG. Huh, it's not letting me save it as a PNG. Okay. Well, in that case, I'm going to export it. No, I can't export it. Huh, that's interesting. I wonder if it's the fact that it's in CMYK or 16 bits. Let me see if that helps. I've actually never run into this issue before where I couldn't save something as a PNG. That's very bizarre. Let me get rid of this. Maybe that'll help if I just make it one layer. Huh. Nope. Wow. There's something in the color that is preventing me from doing it. Maybe if I save it to RGB. It's probably RGB. Yep. So for some reason, you have to save it as a PNG, or you have to have it in RGB in order to save it as a PNG, which is okay. It's not going to be a big deal. It's just going to look slightly different in print than it does on your computer screen, which it will always anyway. So it's not that big of a deal. I'm going to switch back over to Teespring. I'm getting a lot faster at this now. All right. Back to Teespring, and instead of applying all these elements one by one, I can just go ahead and grab that PNG that I just created. And there it is. And apply it. Now I went over this fairly quickly. Oh, actually, it didn't complain about the number of colors, although it is quite a few. You could see that the price really jumped up there. So there we go. Whoops, I deleted that by accident. Grab that really quick. So the advantage of using a PNG, I went over this quickly in the training, is that it does not have a background, or rather the background is transparent. If this was a JPEG, if I had saved this as a JPEG, it would have filled that entire space with white. Okay, so that's a disadvantage of using a JPEG versus a PNG. You certainly don't want that because it would have printed all this white on a blue t-shirt. Even if the t-shirt was white, you still don't want to print white color onto it. Okay, you want to get rid of anything that's white because the white that they print might be slightly different than the white of the t-shirt, and that's just going to look all sorts of messy. Definitely don't want to do that. Okay, so now we have our little text holder. Again, this would have been a lot bigger if this was at 300 DPI. It's also transparent for some reason. Huh. I wonder if it's transparent in here. No, it's fine. That's odd. Well, for some reason, this got to be a little transparent, or maybe it's just the shadows. Oh yeah, I think it's just the website showing us the shadows of the t-shirt falling on top of the graphic. So that's fine. And then we could add text over it. And make it white. Whoa, why'd you go away? Okay. Make it a little larger. Move it up. Okay. Whoa, that's so weird. I don't know why it keeps disappearing. Okay, well, maybe I'm doing something wrong, or maybe it's another one of those website flukes. Glitches happen. Wow. Oh, it's because it's every time I select this, even if it's by accident, it covers up the text. Pardon my fumbling. And I don't actually know how to move it forward. Oh, I guess just by selecting it, it moves forward. So let's just get rid of these other ones. Delete. Okay, delete. And I'm gonna move this up so we can grab it later. Grab our original image. Grab this. No. Wow. It's kind of a pain in the butt. Yeah, see, so all this extra space is creating a problem. It's making it really hard to grab anything. So what I'm gonna do is go back to my Photoshop. I gotta switch again. Uh-oh. Kenneth is saying my screen is frozen. Let me see. Can you see it when I switch? Oh. Mm-hmm. Okay, guys, let me know if it's still frozen or if that was just me not switching my screens quickly enough. All right. Okay, so now you should be able to see my Photoshop. What I'm going to do is marquee this and crop off all the extra stuff. Okay, now I get rid of the background. I had made a little background really quick while you guys weren't looking. And I'm going to save it as a PNG once again. Yes, great. Okay, so now this is going to be so much more manageable. Switching back to Teespring. Yay, isn't frozen. Thank you, Kenneth. Okay, so going to delete this. You just hit delete, upload my artwork, grab that new PNG that we created that is going to not have all the extra fluff, but we cut out some of the shadow. Oops. That's something that we can fix later. For now, for demonstration's sake, let's just get this over with. Now I can actually manipulate my image and my text very easily. Put that over the image, and there we have our t-shirt design. We don't have to do any more to this other than, you know, click next and make sure that we're okay with our colors. This tells us our estimated profit if we sell 50 shirts. If we don't anticipate that we're going to sell 50 shirts, and we really don't have to, we can still sell more. I actually don't know what the disadvantage is to just making less or projecting fewer shirts. So you could say it's 20, you make a slightly smaller profit. Again, the more you get printed, the more of a profit you make per each. This tells you how much profit you're making per t-shirt. It actually ends up being less than that because they ship the t-shirt to your patrons. So they take that out of your profit. So you don't quite make that per t-shirt. So keep that in mind. At least that's how it was when I used this. It was quite a while ago. If anybody If anybody wants to prove me wrong or tell me different, please do so. Okay, and now you have to name your campaign. So keep in mind, this is a campaign. It's not just a t-shirt design. So you would give it a title. If you've ever used any crowdsourcing website like Indiegogo or Kickstarter, this is kind of the same principle. So I'm gonna save you some time and not go through every single one of these fields. I'm gonna show you, I already went over 2 ways to make t-shirts, right? One is that you go to Teespring. One is that you go to a physical shop that's in your area. And I'm sure you could find one online too and maybe sort of communicate with them via the mail, kind of get a proof via mail somehow. So maybe you don't have to actually do the footwork and be in the area. But I'm going to show you another way to do this, which is Custom Ink is one of the most popular ones. I think it's Custom Ink. Yes, okay, great. And here is how you would get t-shirts printed if you didn't want to do crowdsource, if you just wanted to order a whole bunch of them and have the inventory sitting in your house so that they're ready to ship. So say you're giving a gift to somebody, maybe somebody is one of your customers, like you guys. Maybe if I wanted to make you a t-shirt, I would go to Custom Ink and order a whole bunch. And this it works exactly the same way or almost the same way as Teespring. You can rotate it, do something to the back. By the way, I think I skipped over that here, but you could do the same thing. You can actually design the back as well. So this is a design in the front. You can, that's just showing you the back, but you can design it here. So you have another printable area. You could take a screenshot of that and bring that back into Canva or Photoshop. Design the back there. Same thing here. Rotate. You can even get a sleeve print. So that looks kind of neat. So a few different features that even Teespring doesn't offer. If you have any questions, you could go to live chat with a real person. They're actually really helpful. I've done this. They're right there for you. Their English is great for what that's worth. And there's like just super gung-ho about helping you. So great site, I strongly recommend it. It might not be the cheaper. I know there are a couple of cheaper options out there, but you know, you get what you pay for. So that's Custom Ink. This is for ordering in more or less bulk. You want to order in bulk, again, that's going to bring your price down. Okay, so that is how we would make t-shirts. You have your 3 options, and you have your 3 ways to create your design, whether it's in the website, whether it's in Photoshop, or a free software like Canva, or PicMonkey, I think, is one. iPicky is another one. I'm sure you guys all have your little resources for how to create designs for free. Also, there's GIMP, but GIMP, I actually tried to download that this morning. GIMP is one of the more complex options. It is free, and it is comparable to Photoshop. However, when I used it, let me make sure I'm on the right screen first of all. Yes, okay, good. When I tried to download it, my Mac actually rejected it. It said because it couldn't verify the source and it looked a little shady to it, I guess, it would not let me open it on my computer. So much for GIMP. If you can use it, please do. It's a pretty safe bet, but I guess not for me. So let me go ahead. By the way, I wonder if when I switch tabs, can you guys see it? Yes, you can. Great. Okay, I mean, that's pretty much it for a lot of the questions that we had. Oh, you know what? There was one very important thing that I wanted to cover. Someone was asking about designing books in Canva. Now, here's the thing that I don't really like about that. And what a lot of people don't know about Canva, I guess they're seeing a lot of courses online teaching them how to make books in Canva and stuff. Well, first of all, we talked about how they limit you to 30 pages. Second of all, this person, Mike, had used I hope you don't mind me using you as an example, but he had used a free quote-unquote element in Canva. Well, they made him pay $1 when he checked out, but that was the first thing. The second thing, oops, actually won't let me open it, but the second thing that it did, I'm gonna have to switch windows here in a second. They actually don't give you a full license. They give you a very limited license. Even when you pay that $1 for a design when you use it in Canva, they only give you a one-time use license. And this is what's not immediately apparent when you use Canva. And it's very unfortunate because they could actually shut down your account or get you in a lot of trouble. So you really want to keep that in mind. A one-time use license means that you can literally use it only on one thing. You cannot, you can use it for self-promotion. So I was actually emailing with them this morning about it. You can use it for self-promotion on things like social media and printing, I believe, a flyer for your own website or your own services, but you cannot get it printed on something like a mug or a t-shirt. That is actually illegal, and there is no option that Canva provides that allows you to buy any other kind of license, okay? So I don't know why. They actually outline different licenses on their terms of use page, but they don't actually offer those licenses. It's very strange. It might be something that they're just working towards. I don't want to knock Canva. They're a great company. They're very generous for the most part. Okay. Let me see. Okay, there we go. I'm going to show you their terms of use so you can see for yourself. Yeah, Canva terms, open. Okay, let me just switch to my preview really quick. So be extremely careful when you use anything that comes from Canva. And the one-term use license, I believe it still has a run limit, so you can't, even if you get something printed on a flyer, you can only make a maximum of 2,000 flyers. So that's the other limitation. So I'm not sure why. Okay, there we go. Finally found it. Sorry, it took me a minute. Here it is. Canva allows you to use and export content submitted by others to create beautiful designs. If you download any designs containing anyone else's art content, you have to license it under one of the licenses in this section. And then it provides all these bunch of licenses, but there's actually no option for buying those licenses. When you do purchase the image, when you send them your dollar, they do say that you now own the one-time use license, so that's totally cool. And if that's enough for your uses and purposes, that's fine. So remember the 2,000 print limit and only putting it on one thing. Those are the limits that you have to do, and you cannot sell anything like mugs or t-shirts or anything, any item where the primary value of that item is a picture that you downloaded from Canva. You can make anything in Canva that uses, for example, elements from the graphics pack Toybox, any kind of stock images that you bought, you can use it under the license of whoever you bought it from. So for instance, if I send you guys some stock images as a gift, you're totally free to use those things. Like you don't have to, you know, if I tell you that you have full rights to them, that means you have full rights. You don't have to worry about it. If you're making something in Canva that's made out of your images, you don't have to worry about it. You only have to worry about when you're using images that they provide to you, either for free or for $1. Okay, so I hope that's clear to everybody. I really want to sort of drill that home because that could potentially get somebody in a lot of trouble or get them banned from Canva. And it's not immediately apparent. That's what drives me crazy. They make it really hard to find this information. And the information, some of the information written on their site is actually contrary to what I was told when I was having this conversation with a support person. So that's just a little thing that I want to leave you with. Hopefully that all makes sense. We're just getting to our time. All right, so I actually managed to fill up most of that hour. Hooray! I hope you guys got a lot out of this. And I just want to tell you guys that I didn't get quite as many questions as I thought I was going to get. I was expecting a lot more, and I was kind of wondering why that could be. And what I think might have happened is when you're not really familiar with a certain field, you start to get kind of, you don't know what questions to ask. You know, somebody asks you, well, do you have any more questions? You're like, I don't know, you tell me. So with that in mind, I think that was part of the problem. Also, another part of the problem, I think, was a lot of you have questions that are unique to you and unique to your brand. And, you know, I get like this too. I don't really want to ask questions that are too specific to myself because I'm going to take up everyone else's time asking something that they might not be involved with. So With that in mind, I've obviously really thought about this a lot, and it makes me feel terrible that someone might be missing out on information that could be really beneficial to them in their brand. So I actually thought of a way to fix that. Okay, so let me go over here. Let me remember my own URL. Okay, I'm going to graphictoybox.com/insider. I just changed that to make it easier. Hopefully that works. Okay, sweet, perfect. So because I can't keep doing these Q&As, and even when I do the Q&As, they're not necessarily giving you that personal one-on-one information that you might want to incorporate into your brand. What I want to give you is access, direct access to my time, to my knowledge, to my experience, so that I can apply that to you and your business. I've never done this before. I just decided to download a scheduling app and open up some half-hour sessions for all of you. And this is only for buyers of the social media graphics toy box. I'm not opening this opportunity to anybody else. I want to make sure that, first of all, you guys are using this pack properly and that you don't have any questions, you don't have any hangups with it. And secondly, I don't want to make this about the toy box exclusively. I just want to help you guys with your brand. I think that might be some fundamental issues that are preventing you from, using this graphics toy box. I know a lot of times we buy product and we think they're going to be a band-aid for bigger problems, and that's not always the case. So we ended up just wasting our money on that product, and I definitely don't want that to happen. If you guys haven't gotten it yet, it's really important for me that you get your money's worth, that you get your value. This is my very first product. So this is why I'm kind of maybe being a little overbearing, and I apologize if I am, but that's just how I roll, so sorry. Okay, well, we want to talk about your brand. That's one of the things that I really want to offer you guys. That's one of the things that I want to start with. And really, this is going to be a half hour where you get to be the driver. So if you want me to review stuff, if you want me to review some things that you might be fundamental problems in your brand or in your look, we can do that. We can talk about some skills, some specific skills that you want to acquire. If you're seeing somebody doing something that looks really cool to you, you can just hit me with a question like, hey, how's that guy doing that? And I know that half hour is kind of not a lot of time. So whatever it is that you guys choose to try and hit during this time, and by the way, I will hit it with everything I've got so that we can get you so we can really get something accomplished. We can really leave you with something that you can use. I will make sure that by following up with you. So even if we don't get done by the end of the half hour, I will stick with you. And I'm assuming that you're not gonna have me do the Sistine Chapel, paint the whole ceiling. So with that in mind, I trust you guys not to take advantage of that, but I will tell you that I will stick with you. I will make sure that you walk away with something you can use, whether we run out of time or not. So unfortunately, this one is not going to be free. I do have to charge for something, otherwise I'm gonna have to move to a cave, and you guys probably don't want that. But it is 97 bucks, and if you've ever done any kind of a coaching session or one-on-one, you know how ridiculously low that price is. Again, that's largely due to the fact that this is the first time I'm ever doing this. I'm testing the waters, and by the way, that doesn't mean that you're at risk of something going wrong. That really means that I'm at risk of biting off way more than I could chew and giving myself way too much work. So everything will be totally fine for you. And with that being said, just because I might be totally overwhelming myself with this, I'm only opening this up to 10 people. This is me just testing the waters. So after 10 people buy this package, the offer will close. That doesn't mean that I'll never open it back up again. I'll probably will, to be honest. I will probably incorporate some of the things that I learned the first time around. Will it be at the same price? Probably not. I'm not gonna tell you that, oh, it's gonna be, $29.97 or whatever, but it's not going to be 97 bucks. I could probably guarantee that. So with all that in mind, I'm gonna leave you with that. The URL is graphictoybox.com. Oh, by the way, this is only open until Saturday morning. So Saturday at 1 p.m. is when the first half-hour sessions start. And after that, I am closing the deal. I'm shutting down the sales page. So before that, make sure you go to graphictoybox.com, graphics with an S, /insider. graphictoybox.com/insider. I will also post the link on the Facebook page and probably mail it out to you guys via the email list. Also, this replay will be available, so you could always go back and rewind it and look through it. So with that all being said, I hope you guys had an amazing time. I hope you got a lot out of this. I had a lot of fun being here with you today. I'm going to leave you with this webpage, and I hope that I get to see you face-to-face or face-to-screen very soon. Alrighty, guys, have an amazing day. Bye-bye.